Welcome back to Gold Derby. I'm Christopher Rosen. I'm so pleased to be joined by Brent Miller, executive producer of Live in front of a studio audience, The Facts of Life and Diff'rent Strokes. Brent, I love this special so much. It's so much fun. I know this is the third time you've done one of these, obviously on the, what did you learn on the previous two that maybe helped you this time around? Though obviously this time around you probably had the additional headache of the pandemic and all these different things. So what you learn, I guess.
Well, I mean, I think this time around it was all about having a good time. We came off the pandemic. Well, I think we're coming off the pandemic, and we came out of a certain administration that we all felt we needed to just kind of let loose and have a good time. So we chose the 80s, and we chose these two shows that are part of Lear's library. For the simple reason that it's like feel good entertainment, and it was the nostalgia with a little bit of cheese and being able to cast an amazing group of people, which, by the way, the conceit, the idea of casting older people to play kids was 100% Jimmy Kimmel, and bless him for suggesting it, because I resisted it in the beginning. I thought, are you sure we want to do this? And his instincts were spot on. So we have no reason to regret our cast that we had, and we all had a really good time.
Yeah, and as a viewer, I also had a really good time watching it. I watched it before we did this interview as well, again, because it's on Hulu, obviously, and I think Disney Plus as well. You can watch these, and obviously the cast is incredible. You have like Jennifer Aniston and Gabrielle Union and all these major famous people, Jason Bateman. I could go on and on. There's so many. I've actually lost track of how many, but I guess wanted to go back to the episodes, and you mentioned the 80s and stuff. Why those specific episodes? I guess of Facts of Life and Diff'rent Strokes, and how did you guys decide, which ones you wanted to recreate in this format?
Well, I mean, again, we really wanted feel-good entertainment. So unlike All in the Family and The Jeffersons and Good Times, those shows had a little more weight to them back in the day when Norman was a part of that crew. So when we chose these two shows, we really wanted to make sure that people would just have a good time, and at the same time, it still felt relevant. But it was relevant in a fun kind of way, and we could have a cast that not only was the immediate cast, but we love the idea of the special guest stars, and we wanted to make sure that we could have an episode that featured those guest stars or that offered roles for other actors that could be a part of the whole evening. So the idea of the Facts of Life episode specifically was, there's so many episodes we could have chosen, but we chose that one because of the fact that there was an opportunity for Jason and Will and Jon Stewart and all of them to come be a part of it. And we try to make these shows as much of an ensemble experience as possible, because when you have these kind of actors that are willing to come on board and have a good time, you want to make sure that they all have an equal, or as much as an equal amount of screen time as possible.
Right. So with the casting, obviously you have all these, it's like a 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon kind of sort of thing, where everybody, you have obviously Will Arnett and Jason Bateman from Arrested Development, and you have Jennifer Aniston and Jason Bateman have worked together a lot, and all these different things. Where do you start, I guess? And is there does one person unlock the rest of the cast, I guess? How does that come together? I mean, obviously Norman Lear is an incredible icon, so I'm sure people are like, yes, I want to do this. But I mean, how do you guys kind of get it together and get it, make sure you're casting down the line?
Well, you hit two things. One is that's what Jimmy always says, is that everybody wants to work with Norman Lear, and why wouldn't they? I mean, he's obviously, I've been with him 16 years, so I'm a little biased, but even after 16 years, he's one of the most amazing humans anyone could ever work with or be with or create with. As far as the other part of your question with the casting process, in this particular case, it was really all about Kevin Hart, because in the beginning of us doing these specials, Jimmy Kimmel had said, I want to do Diff'rent Strokes and I want to do Kevin Hart as Arnold, which was hilarious for all the obvious reasons. And but Kevin is one of the busiest fucking actors that I know. I mean, he's constantly working every day. So we started with finding a schedule that worked for him, to be perfectly honest, and we locked down what availability he had, and then we built the show around it.
Interesting. That's so wild, because then like, and I guess when you're coming through, like I watching it, you mentioned like kind of aging up the cast, but when I was watching, I'm like, well, these are actually perfect. It's like perfect casting for Facts of Life. Like Jennifer Aniston is Blair, totally perfect, obviously, even though Jennifer Aniston is not a teenager, and like Catherine Hahn is Joe, Gabrielle Union is Tootie, Allison Tolman is Natalie. It just, everything works so well. And I guess when you guys were casting that group, two things I guess there would be: A, are you looking for chemistry among the actors? Because like you have no, not to denigrate any of them, but obviously Jennifer Aniston is like a humongous star, and you know, like an A-list star. Not that the others aren't, but obviously there's different levels of fame there. Let's say, so you're kind of casting. I feel like, to me, it felt like they're a good group, and they felt like believably as friends. But I guess, how much are you thinking of that when you're doing it and trying to balance the various roles there, especially with something like Facts of Life, where their chemistry in the original show is so important to like what made that show work?
Well, I think once we decided that we were doing adults to play kids, it was, I mean, we obviously, there's so many people that we could have chosen, and it was all about, you know, who feels like, A, they would have a good time. This isn't about a big payday. This isn't about ego. This is about just really having fun and celebrating a live audience. And so we start with there, and then who fits that role? Who would do a good job? I mean, it really is just a conversation. And then when we narrow it down to who we want to go after, it's very rare that anybody says no. And it again, I mean, maybe it's Norman Lear, maybe it's Jimmy Kimmel, maybe it's Jimmy Burrows, but at the end of the day, everybody just has a lot of fun, and that's, and I'm talking in front of the camera as well as behind the scenes. And you know, I think that maybe a lot of that credit, we should talk about Jimmy Burrows for a second, who has a book coming out, by the way. I should
Oh, nice. Plug away. Yeah, go ahead.
Plug away. It's called Directed By. But you know, he comes to the table with so much experience in not only life experience, but in this business, that people, you know, they come and they respect him and respect the show and what we're doing. And it's, you know, it literally is, let's just have fun. I mean, it's 6 days of a good time.
That's amazing.
Now, up to that is not so fun always.
No, I was gonna say, like, so talk about like what is the rehearsal process like, and like getting this together? It's such a well-oiled machine. I think people, when they're watching, especially like I said, you could stream it right now on TV or your whatever device you're using, and you might just be like, oh yeah, like this is easy. Like, you know, it's not live, it's live on, now it's live on tape, but it's like live. Like, I guess, like, what is the process like, and how stressful is that to get it together? Because when you watch it, it's like really well, you know, it's good. Like everybody's hitting their marks and like doing it, and it's like, you're like, yeah, this is great. But I mean, like, obviously it's not that easy, I'd imagine.
Well, I mean, these actors are pros. So I mean, it's literally 6 days is what it takes. We get there on a Wednesday, and by the following Wednesday, we are live, you know, in front of America. And you know, the table read is always interesting because it's the first time all the actors see each other, and we hear it. And I think the beauty, and I mentioned this yesterday, we had a panel here at the Hollywood Roosevelt, and we talked a little bit about this. I think one of the, you know, and this is with no disrespect to any studio executive or network executive, but the fact that these scripts are already written and we can't change them is a gift as a producer, because we can move it and we can make it happen quickly. We don't have to listen to notes. We don't have to listen to changes. It just goes. I mean, you get feedback from the actors, but at the end of the day, the whole conceit of this show, this, you know, I guess we're calling it a brand now, is that we're taking scripts that existed from the past and we're just casting them differently and showing the relevance to them then and now, and having a good time. And at the same time, paying homage to those writers and those actors that came before us. So, you know, at the end of the day, it's just about getting there on that table read day, and everybody committing to their rehearsal schedule, which is what it is. It's not terribly grueling, and then putting it on its feet.
Yeah. And you obviously mentioned, like, I mean, speaking of the cast, you have like special appearances from like the original cast of Facts of Life, like Lisa Wachtel, Mindy Cohen, and Kim Fields, and Todd Bridges for this one. I'm imagining again, like yes, like pretty probably easy to get them to come back for Norman because obviously they have such an affinity for him. But I mean, like when they get to see the finished product, I guess not to have you speak for them, but what is their like response when they see like these episodes recreated? I guess especially in this case.
Well, all of them I've gotten to know. I wouldn't say well, but I've gotten to know a bit from this experience. And, you know, I try and be really sensitive to the fact that I didn't live in their shoes. I wasn't a child in this industry growing up with millions of people watching me. So we invite them not just for the nostalgia play, but also out of respect. I mean, it was those actors who made these characters what they are today. And although these new actors are stepping in, they're stepping into a character that was created by the originals, you know. And so for me, I was excited to bring back that original cast. And I know specifically talking to Kim Fields and also Mindy and Todd, and Lee, all of them, they when they walked on set, it was a little bit of a wow. You know, and Todd, you know, not to take this in a different direction, but, you know, Todd was like, I can't believe I'm the one that's still alive. Yeah. You know, if any of them in that cast would have predicted to have been gone, you know, they all predicted Todd because of his past, but he was so sweet and sincere and grateful for us doing it. And I love that he was there, and I love that he could be a part of it. And I love that, you know, Lisa was so willing to jump in that uniform. She looked like she was trapped in a time capsule from, you know, the 1980s, and delivered in the way she did. And so much so that actually, you know, Norman and I thought, you know, she's let's do something with her. So we're exploring a show with Lisa currently. You know.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, that was one of definitely, she does look almost exactly like not really aged. Like, and I remember when it first aired, that was a very popular meme on Twitter that people were like, couldn't believe how she looked like she literally stepped out of the original episode into this you know, recreation. It's pretty wild. And it really is touching. I think you're right. Like as a fan or someone who, I'm a little young to watch them in the original runs, but I definitely watched them like growing up and like reruns and all these different things. And I'm like, it was nostalgic to see the original cast. I think it adds like a nice little, like, you know, like nostalgia or warm feeling, like you said, for the show. I think that's really great. So when this is, how does it work for you guys? Like when this one ends, are you already then thinking of, like you said, this is now like a brand? Are you already thinking of this 2022's version of this, or like how soon do you start like rolling the ball for the next one?
Well, we are thinking of what might be next. And, you know, in this particular moment in time, I'm also thinking about what's happening around the world. And I'm thinking that, you know, there are shows that Norman has in his library that could be really good to show today's audience. You know, I think of Maude, for example. You know, what's happening with abortion right now, and the Supreme Court and Roe v. Wade, and I think, my God, what a time to bring back that episode. I don't know if you remember it or if you've ever seen it, but it's pretty powerful, and it's powerful in a way that you know, it brings levity, and it's the importance, and it shows both sides, and it's just I don't know. I think it's a show worth exploring. So there's no commitments yet from ABC or Sony or us, but it's something that I've talked to Norman about, and I know Jimmy is, you know, he's game if we want to jump in again. But at the same time, we're just enjoying this experience of having 3 really great specials.
It's really great, and that would be awesome. And remembering that episode again, not having seen an original run, but like, yeah, that would be really, really, I think, especially timely. And you mentioned like you got into work with Norman Lear for like 16 years, I think you said, like just incredible. I imagine to get to work with like literally a living legend who is like, you know, one of the most iconic, you know, producers in the history of television, and like kind of like we said, all of these shows that have stood the test of time, obviously, like to now, because you're able to recreate them and still have them be relevant for audiences and get the current audiences being able to get something out of them. Like broadly, I guess, or like what is I mean, for you getting to work with him, like, what is something you've learned about learned from him working with him for this time? I'm sure you have like a million things, but if there's like one thing or something that stands out, I guess, to have this opportunity to work with Norman like you have.
I would say it's less about the entertainment industry and it's more about being a human being. Um, I've had, numerous experiences with him that are not related to entertainment, but that have helped me grow as a human. Also helped me in entertainment, but in not ways that might be so obvious. And he's iconic as a producer and a writer and all of that, and the shows that created. But he's also iconic as a human being, and many people don't know that he's probably one of our oldest living combat veterans from World War II. And his philanthropy and his mission behind trying to make the world a better place at the end of the day. And I hope that I can someday, as he passes the torch to me, do that. And I think together we're doing it now, and I'm loving every minute of it, to be honest.
That's great. And I would say from a viewership standpoint, also loving this as well. Brent Miller, executive producer of Live in Front of a Studio Audience, The Facts of Life and Diff'rent Strokes. Like I said, you can watch that now on Hulu and Disney Plus, and highly recommend. It's a great, enjoyable watch. Thank you, Brent, for doing this. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.